can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Thaddeus Tondu of On Purpose Media. Thaddeus, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Since this is part of the Top Agency series, there's a few favorites. I had Jason Swank on. Jason Swank built his agency up to 8 figures and sold it, and then he started purchasing agencies, and now he runs a group, kind of I guess you'd call it that. He's a mastermind of agency owners to help each other grow, because it's the group he wanted when he had an agency. Check that episode out. It's really interesting about the agency space, valuation space. Also, I had Todd Taskey on. Todd Taskey helps pair agencies with private equity. So he helps sell agencies. He has a Second Bite podcast. It was another interesting episode where we talked about valuation. Agencies called it Second Bite because sometimes when the agencies sell in private equity world and then private equity sells again, sometimes those founders make more on the second bite than they do on the first. So it's interesting to hear that model of selling. It's not retiring on a beach. It's actually just keep working in your business and growing it and rolling equity into the next entity. So check out those and more on InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. So we do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. So Thaddeus, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy for the hosts so they can create amazing relationships, create amazing content, but most importantly, run their business. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships, and I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I have a lot of free episodes on Inspired Insider about podcasting, so you could check those out as well. I'm excited to introduce Thaddeus Tondu. He's a digital marketing agency owner who built a 7-figure business helping home service contractors get more leads and business and dominate their markets. And we'll get into, he helps HVAC companies, plumbing companies, electrical companies, and we'll get into why those niches in particular. And you can find them at onpurposemedia.ca for more information. And Thaddeus, thanks for joining me.
No worries. Thank you for having me on.
So just start us off and tell people a little bit about On Purpose Media and what you do.
Yeah, great. So we're a 5-year-old agency. November 2019 is when we came up with the idea of, hey, let's go into starting our agency. February 2020, went live with it. I quit my job within my first full
Perfect
week.
timing.
Right. Great timing. And well, we didn't know that it was happening, right? I mean, hindsight's always 2020. And so I quit my job in February 2020, like right at the very beginning. Within the first week, went out and landed 5 clients. 4 weeks later, COVID hit and we lost 4 of our 5 clients. Like it was wild. Probably not the best time to start a business. But one of the reasons why we did and why we wanted to go into digital marketing space, it came from 5 years of print media and print advertising and magazines. Sitting down with a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And our rapport building technique was, hey, I took a look at your website. Is there anything that's not on your website that you want me to know about your business? That was it. That was the only rapport question that we ever asked, because if they wanted to build rapport, they would tell you all about it. If they didn't want to build rapport, they wouldn't tell you all about it. A lot of times though, people, well, what do you think of it? And it always were the ones that was tough where you had to tell them that, hey, your website sucked, right? But a lot of times it just opened up a conversation to say, man, I don't really know about my digital agency. I don't really know what they do. I'm really frustrated, or they paid somebody money and they left, they didn't get the product, or they did this, but now they can't get in touch with people. Now there's also great stories out there like, yeah, I love my agency. They're absolutely amazing for me. And so we're like, okay, by and large, the majority are one of those first 2 camps. And so we're like, let's build our business based off of honesty and transparency. And that's where we are now.
So how'd you get those clients? Most people, right off the bat wouldn't go, boom, I got 5 clients.
I picked up the phone and called.
Who were
Literally
you
cold called.
targeting?
I just cold called any business. It didn't matter, like local businesses. And so the thing with being in business for the last 5 years or in print advertising for the last 5 years is I had a big database of businesses that I could call upon, some current clients, some that I know that told me, well, my digital this, digital that first. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call all those low hanging fruit of people that I already know, that I already have built a connection with and offered that to them. So it was a little bit easier for me because I had the database, but it was across the board. It didn't really matter what industry. I mean, we had a pet store, a dog daycare, an HVAC company, and I'm trying to remember a roofing company, and there's one other one that was in there. And a float spa. That's what it was. Those were the five. And so, like when you look at those, you're like, all right. I think those were the five. By the way, I'm going on memory here, so don't hold me to that if that is
I
in
don't
fact
think I could
different. So.
fact check you on that one
Right.
anyways.
Now it'd be me fact checking myself. I probably will after this, but it was all people that I knew, and I just called them, and I had a conversation, and we landed. Now we were also pennies on the dollar because we told them that we were new and we wanted to learn some of the things. So like, we're gonna charge you low amounts, and they're like, "Let's go."
I want to hear because I know that you have training going back even to Cutco sales. So
Mhm.
all the people I know who went through Cutco are masters. Okay. And so I know there's more than meets the eye. I just called them. What were you saying when you were on the phone with them? Like you said, you had some risk reversal with, listen, we're new. What were some of the things and how did you, it sounds like maybe you knew some of these people, maybe not, but what were you saying on the phone with them?
Yeah, I'd have to really die. I know after the first five, I switched to a second opinion audit. And so I would call people randomly, didn't have a relationship, and just offer a second opinion look and go through their digital marketing and give you actionable tips on how to be able to get better. And I created a whole script for it too, and told them that was no obligation. It was free, created a power, like a PDF. Everything was online, so it was easy for me to do. And then I'd send them the PDF after manually, by the way, doing the PDF, not with like technology now, to be able to just give them the value. The first few, it was kind of the same things. Like, hey, I'd love to come in and sit down and do kind of a second opinion audit. By the way, we're new, and maybe I can point you in the right direction of being able to help us learn some things and help you at the same time get some marketing out. And it's kind of a win-win. And they're like, oh, you can do marketing for cheap and you're going to learn. And like, okay. And like I remember the one client, he said, hey guys, like, he's like, that I have no issues with you being new. In fact, I applaud you for taking the step because I mean, they're business owners. They get it. There's a risk somewhere. And so he's like, you just have to promise me one thing. I'm like, what's that? It's like, well, when you mess up, you just have to promise me that you're going to fail forward, that you're going to learn from the mistake and you're not going to make that same mistake again because you are going to mess up on my campaign and that's okay. Just learn from it. I'm like, done, sold. I can do that for you.
You're like, just don't spend all my money on
Right.
one thing. So you say, I mean, most people, how do I say most people, but I know I've heard people who I had one of the co-founders of Wistia on the podcast a while ago, and they said they made themselves look and feel like a big company even though they were new. So it's an interesting, approach, obviously, just to be straight up. Hey, we're new here. How did you decide to charge at that point?
Throwing darts at a dartboard, really. Like, we didn't have a clue. We didn't have a clue. We bought well, I know that one of the courses that I bought was Ty Lopez's social media marketing agency 2.0. And like, I think he's on like 5.0 now. And I always kind of make fun of the course, but like, there really wasn't a lot of substance in there. It was enough to be able to like, okay, you have to kind of understand some of the things, then you just have to kind of go from there. We shot in the dark. We're like, sure, this price sounds good. What's our cost of our software? And then maybe let's add some margin on top of it, and had no clue. And I don't think we made money for the first few months, because that was on purpose, right? We wanted to make sure that we had some case studies and some data to be able to support that we can do it digitally. Because that's the other part too, is I mean, what's your barrier to entry to being a marketing agency? Laptop and internet connection. Cool, digital marketer, right? There's no certification. There's no core. I mean, you could take a university course from a professor who doesn't even know how to turn on his laptop and he's going to tell you about digital marketing, right? Now I'm being a little tongue in cheek here. But the idea is there. And so, okay, well, how do you learn digital marketing? Real world applications, in my opinion. That's how you learn a lot of it. And that's why we were upfront with it. Now we pivoted from that. We stopped telling people that we were brand new, and we just told them, yeah, we've got 6 years of marketing experience. We didn't tell them that 5 of them were in print.
What do you remember one of the first clients, what you end up charging that you probably wince at now?
I believe it was $197 a month for Google ads, plus their ad spend. And then we had another one that was like 250 or something like that to manage their social media. And it was a pet grooming and a pet store. Uh, and like I remember going and like, yeah, let's just do it. So I took my phone and a tripod and I literally went down there and I spent probably 2 hours just having like filming them doing dog grooming and like hyperlapsing the video. But I mean, like we were like probably below minimum wage at this point, from what we were charging. It was wild.
How did you decide on the services that you offered? Because at the time you went from selling print media and now you have an agency. So what were the services you offered?
Everything. It was anything digital, social media marketing, social media management, Facebook ads, Google ads, website building, SEO. We did it all. We're like, let's just go for it and figure out which ones we like and which ones we're good at.
And then at what point did you obviously now, I'm gonna share your site here for a second. And right now you obviously focus, right, on specific industries. And I mentioned, plumbing, HVAC, electrical. What point
Correct.
did you decide we're gonna niche down?
September 2020, we hired a coach inside of our agency. And oh yeah, that site. So that's the old site. We're actually in the process of redoing the site right now, and we can talk a little bit later about that, about what it looks like and kind of the why behind it. Um, Hopefully this week, if not next, we'll have that up and live and running. But in September 2020, we had a coach in our business, and he's like, "You guys, you got to niche down. Like you're doing 5 or 6 or 7 different trades. Do you guys want to be a generalist agency, or do you want to be an agency that's niche down and take clients from all over North America?" And as a Canadian company, earning money in USD was actually very attractive to us, especially right now. It's $1 is $1.39 in Canadian dollars, right? Like it's crazy. And so we looked at all of our past clients and said, okay, which ones resonated the most with us? Well, it was the blue collars. There was a roofer and there's an HVAC client. And we're like, okay, well, which one out of the roofing and HVAC makes the most sense? We're like, well, we kind of like HVAC. And, my business partner at the time was a comfort advisor, sold HVAC. And so it just made sense to naturally go that way. The other part of why we moved away from the dog store or the dog grooming model and into HVAC or home services, debating between roofing and HVAC, was the ticket size, right? When you look at being able to recoup marketing costs, well, if you have a dog groomer charging $100 a dog groom, I don't know if even that's accurate, $50 a dog groom. We have a black lab. We don't need to get her groomed. But if it's $50 or $100 and it's recurring, sure. Well, you have to bring in a lot of dog groomings in order to be able to justify a high ticket, high margin marketing cost. HVAC, well, if you've got an average install of $10,000 to replace a system or 15,000,
Don't
you
remind
make your
me.
money
Yeah.
back. Yeah, don't remind you, right? And so you have an opportunity to show a return on ad spend and an ROI and a return on investment easier with a higher ticket number than you do with the lower ticket number. Not to say there's anything wrong with companies that want big volume, low ticket, completely fine. I know a lot of successful agencies that do that. Just wasn't for us.
We'll get into a little bit that is mentors and what you learn from them,
Sure.
but we're on your website here. If people are listening to the audio, there is a video component here. And you were kind enough to show us the new version. And so I'd
Correct.
love to hear the decisions you made from this version to the revamped version. I'm sure this one's not completely finished yet because it hasn't even launched yet, by the way. So
Correct.
talk about some of the differences here.
Sure. So in terms of the original site, one of the things that you noted, like there's a lot of the colors in this image. When we first started, I asked, I'm like, what's my favorite color, and what's the other person's favorite color? The business partner. And we're like, well, we had blue and green, so it was white, blue, and green. That was our colors, and then we rebranded to be like, okay, let's actually pull off some pop here, and we chose pink because not a lot of marketing agencies have pink. But if you scroll down, one of the things that you notice in here is that it's all stock photos, right? There's like, it's a guy that's like, I've seen these same four people rather, on like 5 other websites. And so like, it's all stock. You scroll down into the case studies and what it's like working with us. Now, granted, 3 of those 4 clients are no longer with us anymore for good reasons. But just taking it and saying, okay, well, if we built this site 3 years ago, which is roughly when we did that, well, what's changed in the last 3 years from a design elements? Well, now you flip over to so you see the old branding right here, like on this one here, it says on purpose. And so that's one of our oldest reports. You can actually see, if you look really closely at the
Yep.
logo,
Yep.
different colors, right? And so, so that's part of it. There's just old things that are on here. We cared so much about our clients' marketing that we just neglected our own for such a long period of time. And so we're like, okay,
I
now
do
let's
like
actually,
the Meet Our Team page though.
yep,
So
yep.
this is, I don't know if that's changing much, but this is cool.
No, it's still staying the same. So you can
Yeah.
actually on the staging URL navigate the entire website. And so we have our team, we have it down there. But if you come and you look at this, and so now we've cleaned up some
And
of
this is
the
the new
elements.
site for
Yeah, this
everyone.
is the new
Yep.
site. And so one of the things that you'd note from the old one to this one is the buttons, or the call to actions, or as we like to call it, the CTAs for short. So you're looking at the top right, the schedule a strategy call, and then the other one says book now, schedule a strategy call. Like I don't even know, like calling us, right? Like book your free strategy session. Okay, well, there's so many different things going on there. Like I don't want people to call me as a marketing agency. I want you to book a time on my calendar, because that's going to be the easiest for you. Right now, sure, will we put our phone number? Yes, on there. But now if you see this button is book now, schedule strategy call, and then find the next button. Like if you just keep scrolling down, so book now, schedule strategy call. The next button is you scroll down, guess what it says? Book now, schedule strategy call. I mean, minus those ones, it's like giving more information or whatever, but like all the other CTAs are book now, schedule strategy call. We've also modernized it. So that image right there, our work is going to change. But like that's a video that plays. And so we have video elements in there. We've updated it to match a lot of our designs of what we do with our current clients as well. And that's just a video on why on purpose media and why us, sort of a thing that we've embedded onto the site. And just showcasing a little bit more of our work. The other pages, once we get our images are being redone in some of the pages, but when we go into like an SEO page or a PPC page, for example, specifically to our clients, you're actually going to see screenshots of our work that's in there, and the results that are in there where that wasn't in there and before. And so like right there, right? So you look at that first picture, it's talking like, okay, this is a legitimate screenshot. Now I don't like the pink background. That was one of the things that we've changed, and I've given to my team to fix. Because again, this is a work in progress, right? We're currently building our own new website. Again, just creating a better flow for it and better ease of use, putting in photos of me, putting in photos of our team, putting in non-stock photos that are legitimate, I think is a big thing. And I think any business for that matter should get away from stock photos. If you're a home service business looking at this, I mean, if you're a marketing agency, if you're any business listening to this podcast right now, do yourself a favor and go get some real photos. Because if you put stock photos on there, you instantly hurt your conversion rates.
Anything else that people should notice on here? That is, obviously people can see the call to actions are
Yeah,
different,
yeah.
and yeah.
The heading term on there, and so you look at the original site, is those data-driven digital marketing solutions for HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies, with like an H2 or a subtitle underneath it, growing your revenue and filling your dispatch boards, blending new school technology with old school relationships. I found that was a mouthful. So if you go over to the new site, so purpose-driven digital marketing, and by the way, we've highlighted in pink the words digital marketing, right? For HVAC, plumbing, and electrical businesses that gets you results. Again, highlighted that in pink, not just clicks. And so you're looking at the pain point. Well, what's the biggest pain point for a lot of home service businesses is marketing companies that promise the world and give nothing, right? So we get your results, we just don't get clicks. Now, the subtitles increase your leads and revenue with specific marketing strategies designed for home service businesses. It's punchy and it's to the point, but it also blends the name On Purpose Media to be off self and on purpose, because we want to be purpose driven in what we do.
Love it.
So that's the big change.
No, thank you for sharing that. And mentors. Some of the stuff you learn from mentors. You mentioned one early on that basically was like, listen, you got a niche here. Talk about some of the mentors and business wise and what advice they gave you.
No, great question. So the I mean, mentors for actual operational aspects of our business were huge. And so we had one September 2020. I think we were with him for 9 months. We outgrew him. His MO was getting you to 25K per month in recurring revenue. Time and place. I mean, we came to him, we were doing five, right? Now, obviously, we outgrew that and paced beyond that. And so we had to find another one. And we joined Josh Nelson in the seven figure agency. Phenomenal resource, phenomenal person. A lot of great folks in that organization as well. And his thing is to get marketing agencies to seven figures. And well, we outgrew that one. And he has other programs for people that are doing multiple seven figures. But for us, I just felt it was a time to move on. And so we actually have two right now, best practice coaches type things in there. And so I kind of view it different. Mentors and coaches are almost two different things, right? So coaching groups are what I've talked about so far. And we've got another one, more of a mastermind scenario for me, more of a coach for my director of operations. And we pay for access to that. They're a marketing agency that's multiple seven figures, if not combined all of their resources, eight figures. And everybody in the room has to be doing minimum seven figures in order to be able to join that group. We also have another paid coach inside the business as well. That's more of a one-on-one for the sales and marketing and the operational side of things. We actually pay for two coaches inside of our business. The mentor part of things, so coaches hold you accountable to be able to get there. The mentor side of things have been there, done that. Here's what you should do. There's been a phenomenal amount of individuals in, especially the most recent, like 3-4 months, 6 months of my business journey, who have been absolutely amazing of saying, hey, here's what's happening in my business. Here's what I'm thinking I should do. What do you think? Because they've been there, they've done that, and they give the unbiased. They don't sugarcoat it either, right? They tell you exactly what they would do, and it's up to you now to choose to whether to take that information or not from a mentorship. And there's been some phenomenal people as a result of the coaching groups that we were in that have really helped that out.
Thaddeus, what was something that stuck out from the Josh Nelson group? It doesn't have to be him himself, but like I'm sure there's other people in there that you took and ran with in your business.
Um, They talked a little bit about culture in there for sure, but a lot of it is just making sure that your things are systematized. When you can have your SOPs and your standing operating procedures and you have it dialed in. So when anybody comes into the organization, they know exactly how to find that information, I think is the biggest one, was a big catalyst to us making sure that it's there. I mean, he's got a ton of swipe and deploys as well that he gives you the resources. And I think that's the other one too, is that lead with value. When you can lead with value and help people, well, at the end of the day, you're going to help yourself in return. It just takes a little bit longer to see your return on investment from that. But it's the greatest feeling ever is to help other people and lead with value, and then know they come back to you later because you help them out.
Software. I love to hear what kind of software and tools you like. I remember I had the founder of Sweet Process on because we're talking about SOPs, and it helps. It's basically that database where you can document your SOPs, have them in a searchable database so anyone from the company can deploy them and search them. So I'd love to hear some of your favorite software that you use.
Sure. We are heavily into the Google Workspace for a lot of our stuff. So everything's organized in Google Drive. Every client has their own folder. Everything gets uploaded into that folder. So everything is there, which is a big thing for us because we're already paying for access into the Google Workspace via our emails. We use Google Chat and Google Spaces. We don't use Slack in our organization. To be honest, I dislike that Slack on desktop doesn't have the Giphy keyboard, so you can't actually search for GIFs. You have to be like, I'm feeling lucky and type in a word, and you got to like keep going through where like I want to scroll. You can do it on your phone, just not on a desktop. GIFs are a big part of our business, if you can't tell. So, and plus, we're already paying for access to Google Spaces, anyways. So that's kind of the one for like the organizational back end of things. We use ClickUp for our project management software, massive to be able to have a centralized place to manage tasks. Because if you're like, well, I'm going to do it, and then you never write it down, well, it doesn't get done. Like I mean, get a bunch of quick starts in a room and come up with with 1,000 ideas. But if nobody wrote it down, you're not going up with one, right? And so making sure that these ideas get documented in there. We use EOS and we use a software called Bloom Growth for our EOS platform, be able to manage and do that. But perhaps my most favorite software that we use in our agency is actually something called Kumo Space. So Kumo Space, I don't know if you've heard of it before, but Kumo Space is is wild. So you actually have a virtual office inside
I've
of
never
it.
heard of it. No.
Yeah. I mean, am I able to share my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So let's actually do this. So I think this is the right one. So down here on the bottom, this is literally our virtual office. So you can actually see like me down here in the bottom is my office. I can actually move around as an avatar in my office with my keyboards and double clicks. So we put a turkey in
If you
my
have to go to the
office.
bathroom, do you put yourself in the bathroom?
Well, we put the away and then
I'm
we
just
put the
kidding. I'm
poop,
just
then we put the
kidding.
emoji, the poop emoji there. But you can actually move into anybody's office at any point in time. Like you can see, so like these folks up here having a meeting. And so like if I wasn't in focusing mode, you could actually I don't want to turn their cameras on, but so if I wasn't in this focusing mode, I can actually see their cameras on right now because they're in a meeting in our boardroom. Right.
That's
And
so
so
cool.
if you want to pop in to have a conversation with someone, it's like my director of operations, if we're typing something like this is stupid, her door's open, I'm just going to go into her office and have a conversation. So it actually saves a lot of time from it, but then that helps build culture because what's the most aggravating thing in a remote world? Isolationism. And so how do you remove that? Well, we have a virtual office. I've been exclusive remote since 2014. And this is the closest thing that I've ever found in my life to being in an office without being in an office.
How'd you discover Kumo Space? That's pretty cool.
We're having a conversation with somebody that we were looking to hire as a coach into our business, and he just mentioned it very quickly in passing. Yeah, there's pricing. So, very neat. I think if you use Kumo on purpose at checkout, you get 10% off, I think, is the name. Or is it?
Nice.
They don't have like the tracking URL, but yeah, it's actually super fun. He just mentioned it in passing. He's like, yeah, we don't use Zoom or whatever in our business. He's like, we use something called Kumo Space. It's where everybody comes in and works. And it was Time Doctor. That's what he was referencing. He's like, we don't use Time Doctor. We use Kumo Space. And I didn't really think anything of it. I wrote it down and I went and looked at it, did a demo. When I rolled it out to the team over a year ago, I'm like, hey, we're going to do this as a 2-week test because there was a 2-week trial period.
What were you
Like
using before Kumo Space?
Time Doctor.
Oh, Time Doctor does
Yeah.
the meetings and
They
everything?
don't
I
have
thought it was
virtual.
just like
They
a
don't have
time
virtual. No,
tracking.
so it was all Google Chat, and then we would jump
Oh,
on
Google
Google
Chat. I
Google Meet,
gotcha.
and then we'd
I
time
gotcha.
track with Time Doctor. So it was just a mess. And so it was. But then you had no visibility, right? You couldn't see if anybody was in and working or there or whatever, like you're like shot in the dark. And so within what was it, 48 hours of us rolling this out, the team goes, well, yeah, you're not getting rid of this. Like we want it. Like you don't know because they were decorating their offices, they're having fun, they're bouncing in all the. It's just phenomenal from a
Hmm.
visibility standpoint for anybody that is virtual. There's other ones that are out there too. We had already committed to this. Like So Work is another one, but it's more like 3D avatar world type things. And so there's a bunch out there, and this is just the one that works for us.
So this replaced that is for people if they're using Microsoft Teams or Zoom, they would use this with their team instead of those things. So you basically go
Correct.
in the room and you basically click and you kind
Yep.
of you meet with them that way. But it
Yep.
also
The
does
video
time
pops up.
tracking as well.
Yeah, very rudimentary time
Oh, gotcha.
tracking.
Okay.
So there's 3 statuses. It tracks your available, your away, and your focusing, and then that's it. And then shows you how much you've been in the office. And so there's very rudimentary time tracking at best. But at the end of the day, I mean, if a business is having to rely on minute time tracking to see if their employees are doing their work or not, it's not the right way to go about it. It doesn't create a culture.
I want to talk about culture in a second because
Sure.
I love your kind of thoughts and ideas around that from what I've researched. But so it's interesting you had different coaches and mentors and groups for different stages, right? What was the next group? So Josh Nelson, and then you joined another group after that.
Oh, yes. Fully Committed is the name of it. It's from JC and Karen Height are the ones that they're the pioneers behind that, but it's called Fully Committed. They actually cap it. So there's only a set amount of people that are allowed in, and it's a very intricate mastermind where we meet in person 3 times a year. And then they have COO level coaching to be able to get director of operations into the COO suite. They also got some other, like I think there's other programs that don't involve the mastermind that they might have, but I wouldn't know. I'm in their mastermind. So
What was something you took away from Fully Committed?
Oh man, what haven't I taken away from Fully Committed? I think the biggest one is how to have, they had John Maxwell come in for a little while too and do some stuff. And it's just how to have tough conversations with employees, business partners, spouses, anybody really for that matter. How do you appropriately fire somebody, and the words that you use matter, right? Like the biggest thing for that changed how we go about having people fire themselves is the better reframe on that. Is when you step into the office, people tend to build them up and have a conversation, and then like 10 minutes in, they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're fired." And they're like, "What?" But we were just having a good conversation. So rather than that, it's like within like literally the first 30 seconds, say, "Hey, by the way, at the end of this conversation, you're no longer going to have a job here, but let's talk a little bit about how we got here." And so now they know the rug's been pulled out right at the very beginning, and then you have an honest conversation from that.
Well, I've heard you say you like to hire slow and fire slow, and
Mhm.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, Thaddeus, on this, but I heard you say you gave people six chances. I don't know if that's the case, but I was like, whoa, that's a lot of chances to train someone. That's
Mm,
commitment.
great.
Talk about
So
that a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah.
Because when you're
So
talking about, for people context, right? When you're talking about people that fire themselves, you're giving them multiple rounds of chances to improve in coaching and things like that. But talk about the six chances. That should be your
sure.
next book or something in
The
culture.
six chances.
Exactly.
Sure. I think it depends on the level of what their mess up was, right? Like people mess up all the time. And I actually have no issues. I've had this conversation with our team today. Like, I don't care that you guys messed up the first time. I really don't. What I care about is I'm asking you now three times to fix it. Like it shouldn't have to ask more than once to be able to fix something. So the six chances is actually from our performance improvement plan. So it kind of depends on what happened and their level of things. And so we always
Right.
want to make sure that we help people get better. Because if the instant thing is to go, well, I'm just going to terminate that person, you've actually failed them as a leader, in my opinion, because you actually haven't given them the tools necessary to succeed. Again, depending on what the error is. So the six chances comes from with inside of our performance improvement plan. So we'll sit down and we'll identify if there's an issue in terms of the performance, and we have a two-way conversation to say, hey, here's what we see, here's what happened on our end. What's your side of the story? What's happening on your end? What's going on? Why aren't we having these conversations? Why is this like this? And now we have a conversation and institutes dialogue. After that conversation, we say, great, let's work on our performance improvement plan to help you get better. It'll help you get better at this specific instance. We can meet up to six times for this particular instance to see if you can get better. Most people are done after three. I've never actually, I don't think I've ever went past like three or four times of meeting with somebody but it's to monitor their plan, right? To see if they're getting better and they're progressing. And so that's where that six times come in. I mean, if we have to have three different performance improvement plans, usually it's three strikes. Okay, now it's having a different conversation at that point in time. So it's three strikes still, but it's inside each strike is a meeting up to six times to monitor their improvement on their performance.
Talk about tough. I know culture kind of bleeds into sometimes tough
Mhm.
conversations, and I'd love to hear an example of a tough conversation. You were talking on somewhere about you have an arch, I don't know if I'm quoting this right, but we'll say arch nemesis within your company that
Mhm.
you always clash with.
Mhm.
And so talk about how you handle that.
Not very well. Um, yeah, like look, as leaders, as owners, as managers, or whatever your title is, like you're gonna be spouses, significant others, right? Parents, like siblings. There's always gonna be some form of a tough conversation. My opinion is to be direct but kind. If you can be direct but kind, and not everybody can do that, by the way. Some people process things emotionally, and some people process things logically, and some people are kind of in between. Like I'm 90% logical processing, 10% emotion. My arch nemesis was 90% emotional, and I probably would say 95% emotional and 5% logic. It's funny that that person actually is no longer in our organization anymore because it
I
was
was
just
going to
too much.
ask,
Right
how does
now,
that
it
person
was
survive in
right.
if
Well,
you're constantly clashing with
yeah,
the CEO founder,
right.
it's tough.
Well, and I think it's different on how they clash, right? I'm open to having you disagree with me. I am open to you challenging our thoughts. I'm open to you challenging our ideas on how we do things as a business because at the end of the day, I believe that boots on the ground individuals are going to be the key to survival of a lot of businesses. If I, the CEO, am the only one ever coming up with an idea, I believe that the organization will remain stagnant and die out. You need to have those ideas from the ground floor. So that's why we open that dialogue. The difference, though, is how you do the dialogue. If you come at and attack other people on the team, and say that like and don't want to help somebody else on the team because you think like this, that, or the other thing, you don't like them or whatever, or I'm not going to give them the resources. They haven't even sat down in a month of that new personality to be able to like introduce themselves and help them figure out our way of doing things. That's the part where it doesn't really work inside of like the clashing of the organization. So this particular individual, I at one point in my life was a very I mowed people over. I didn't really give a heck. I was going to ask you if I could swear on here, but I've been doing my best of not swearing. So
You're allowed to. It's fine.
right, perfect. So like I never gave a shit about their emotions or their feelings. I just mowed them over because that's how I was. And it took somebody telling me like, hey, dude, you can't just mow people over all the time. Like you have to have emotional intelligence. Emotional Intelligence 2.0, Travis Bradbury, great book. But when you look at having that component of things, how do you actually change who you are as a leader? It's just like the coaches and mentors, right? You have a different season in your business and a different season as a leader. Well, you have to have a different way of showing up to different types of people. And so I've worked really hard at not coming off the handle, except for this one person. The last one was me coming off the handle. It was some yelling back and forth. Not my most proudest moment as a leader in most recent memory. So I'm not perfect, right? And we yelled, and it resulted in him leaving our organization. Probably what's the word I'm looking for? Mutual agreement at that point in time that it was time.
You know, talk about tough conversations, obviously, and then culture. And you mentioned, culture is big, even from, the different groups and mentors. How do you maintain culture? I mean, we saw one of the things, which is Kumo Space, but I know there's other things you do to maintain culture in an all remote workforce.
Continuing to talk about our core values, our big ones. It's part of our as we go on our new website and our careers page, and part of our hiring process is we're talking about them right from the very beginning in our recruiting process to be able to bring people in. Like I have a video that's like 2 minutes of me playing that talks very briefly of our core values in our recruiting process. And then I ask questions in our interview that are based on our core values. First interview, right? Obviously some technical things. So yeah, if you went on our new website, so there's our career. So we actually have our core values listed right there. But then if you scroll down and let's just click on the web development application, for example. Okay. So when somebody goes on here, if you just keep scrolling all the way down to the bottom, there's a video. Okay. And so you have to watch the video first, and it's two minutes and 48 seconds. So 3 minutes of their time to watch the video where I talk about culture, core values, what it matters to us, what it looks like, how does it operate in here. I give them a secret passphrase that they need to remember at the very end of our questionnaire, because now I'm actually matching and mirroring what's on our website to what we talk about in our leading up to it, why we have such a lengthy application process. Then when we come on to the interview, guess what I do? Well, I ask questions that are related to our core values. One of them is be resourceful. Well, one of the questions I asked is, hey, when was the last time you were on YouTube? And what was the problem that you solved? Or what was the last problem you solved via YouTube, right? So one of those things in being resourceful, right? I also asked, my third question is, what motivates you? Right? Because I want to see if they have a bigger purpose. And then I ask another question following up to see if it matches, to say, if money were unlimited, what would you do? Because now I want to see if those match. And if they don't match, there's incongruency in what actually motivates you. Because most people aren't motivated by money, right? They're motivated by something else, being part of something that's bigger than themselves. And so those are sort of the things that we ask inside of there. And some of them aren't quite as direct as those two. There's a lot of them that are kind of thinly veiled into that, because now I want to make sure that they match our culture and our core values. Your skills can be one thing, and there's sometimes we will hire for skill, and sometimes I don't really care what skill you have. If you've got good aptitude, I'm going to hire you because you fit our core values. Every Monday we talk about our core values. Every Monday we highlight a team member that's doing our core values and living those out. We just constantly reinforce what they are, because if somebody talks about their core values and also our mission and our vision, right? Like I can ask our team, what's our mission, right? What's our vision, right? They're gonna go fuck conventional people first digital marketing because that's our mission and our cause. We just happen to do it with home service marketing. And so understanding those things, when you can take your vision, your mission, your core values, you can talk about them ad nauseum inside of the organization. You repeat your vision, you repeat your mission, repeat your core values. I mean, was it Peter Drucker that said culture erodes 1% a day? So if you don't talk about culture for 100 working days, your culture is completely different. So the top has to really formulate the culture. The other part now is finding a culture steward inside the business, especially remote, finding a culture steward inside the business who lives, sleeps, eats, breathes our core values. Terms of EOS, when you had Gino Wickman on, he probably talked about the GWC or the people analyzer. Once a quarter, we actually go through our 5 core values, plus we have the 3H model, the hungry, hustle, humble, that we also talk about too. When we actually rate our people once a quarter on all 8 of those metrics. Is it most of the time they exhibit it, some of the time, or rarely? Because at the end of the day, if they're doing rarely, now we have to have a conversation, say, hey, by the way, we're seeing this in the core values. How are you showing up inside the organization? So everything that we do is veiled through our core values.
Thanks for sharing that. I do. Yeah, I remember, I think it was Peter Drucker who also said culture eats strategy for breakfast or something like that as well. Do you remember an interesting answer to the if money were unlimited, what would you do? What do people say to that?
Most times, a lot of them are to take care of my family, because that's a lot of their motivations. I actually really like the one most recently. Someone's like, you know what? Probably the exact same thing that I'm doing right now. I'm like, all right, why? Well, I just love what I do. The only thing with money would do is just give me a nicer house to be able to do it from. Right? They love what they do, right? And that's I think the best case is that they love what they do and they just want to help their family or help change. Like in the interview today, and he's like there's a lot of poverty in his area, and he would be able to help people with education, help to reduce the crime rate, buy a farm for his grandpa so his grandpa can have cows and chickens because he loves cows and chickens, but he doesn't have a farm to be able to do it on. Like it's just those things that matter to family, I think is the biggest one, because that's really at the end of the day. I mean, not everybody's motivated by family, but a lot of people are.
When we talk about tough conversations, sometimes that happens with clients, right? And so I know we were talking before we hit record about not always getting it right. Can you talk about one of those times with clients and how you handle it?
Yeah, like a champion right off the chin. Really, like the end of the day, humans mess up, right? Like you probably messed up too. You probably don't want to admit it, Jeremy, but you probably did, right? Maybe even today, maybe yesterday.
Every hour? What do you mean?
Right, every
Yeah.
hour, right? So like you make mistakes. Well, I make mistakes. Well, guess what? Business owners make mistakes as well. And I think when they get treated with a bunch of superfluous stuff that doesn't really matter and is irrelevant, you try to hide behind it versus taking it on the chin, saying, "Yeah, you know what? I messed up, or my team messed up. We did that wrong. We are so sorry. We are working on making that right." That goes a long ways with a lot of people. It's
There's
communication at the end of the day.
two things. Again, we're kind of talking about lessons and mentors. One, something you learned from Cutco
Mm.
sales.
Um, Dropping down and never giving up. Like I think that's the biggest one. Is there was really no follow-up sales from Cutco. It was you sold on the spot or you didn't sell them, sort of a thing. But you like the amount of times that you start at the very top and you drop down, you drop down, you drop down, ask for the order, 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 is I think a key thing. Now, obviously, there was a lot of products to be able to do that with, but the other
When
part
you say
is
drop down, it's like giving them a big package than a smaller
correct.
than a small. I gotcha.
Yeah, and so like there was I mean a bunch of different Cutco sets, like we called it the homemaker,
That's a
right?
great
Which
lesson,
is
though.
yeah,
Keep
it's a
going.
huge
Yeah.
lesson, huge lesson. So you have like the homemaker, and then you have another set, and you have a smaller set with the smaller price tag. And so one of the things that in the sales is, well, you start with the biggest one. Why not? What are they gonna say? No? Okay, well, hey, by the way, I also have this other program. What are they gonna say? No, okay, great. Well, I got another program. And you just keep going down. and you show them the different options, right? I mean, now some people say, well, in marketing, like if you've got three programs, you might as well just show them all and let them choose. But I think the other part that a lot of people miss is that the thing that Cutco taught me, and I think partial to today, is that people are lazy. They don't want to just pick up the phone and call somebody, regardless if it's a sales call or not. They want to hide behind an email or a text message. Well, pick up the phone and call somebody because you can get a lot more accomplished by just picking up the phone and dialing. The other part is if you're asking for a meeting, give somebody a choice of two times. Don't just say what time works best for you, because if they tell you a time, then you're not free. Now you've lost control of that conversation. Give them a choice of two times that work for you. And if they say none of those, give them another two choices that work for you and keep going until you find a time.
EOS.
Mm.
And we were talking about KPIs and how do you implement EOS and KPIs into your business?
Hire an implementer. That's going to be the best case for anyone. Lynn Askin is our implementer. He used to have an agency specific to agencies. But the other part that a person has to understand is when you put in KPIs and scorecards, that not everybody's going to want it. Not everybody's going to want to be held accountable. A players will. B players won't. They don't want to have the accountability, right? And then A players get tired of B players who don't ever pick up the slack and do the work. And so now you're gonna have to like do this balancing act all the time. Well, no, here's our scorecards. You either hit them or you don't. If you don't hit them, guess what? Go find somewhere else. Right? Like it's black and white. It's just putting those in, and it's a little bit of a transition period and letting people work through it a little bit. And now we're here. We have our scorecards. We have our KPIs. Like, guys, you got to perform. Like, at the end of the day, we're in a business, and it's yeah, I like feel good, but I also like facts, not feelings.
This has been fantastic. I have one last question.
Sure.
Before I ask it, I want to point people to they can learn more and on onpurposemedia.ca.
Mhm.
You can also check out more episodes of the podcast. My last question is about favorite resources or books. You mentioned the Emotional Intelligence 2.0. You mentioned EOS, which people check out. Traction by Gino Wickman. I actually had him
Mhm.
on the podcast, and Mark Winters I had on also, who co-wrote Rocket Fuel with Gino Wickman. Any other favorite books or resources that you like?
Oh man, there's just so many. Somebody asked me this, what's your favorite book of all time? I'm like, I don't have just one. It matters on the season of my life and the lessons that I'm going to pull from it. Um, I think one that actually it's one of the first ones that I've ever re-listened to was The Hard Thing About Hard Things by it was Ben
Ben
Horowitz.
Horowitz, yeah.
Yeah, I always get because it's Andreessen Horowitz is his VC firm. So, but The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and I think there's some really good lessons from inside of his book, because a lot of the times, I mean, he even says it too, maybe with somebody else, but like a lot of times the books, the self-help books or the business books or whatever are written when things are going well. And how do you make things go well? Well, not very many are written on the fact of, well, what happens when things don't go well? How do you do? How do you react? In his book, Hard Thing About Hard Things, is all of his life lessons of doing those sorts of things. I think Jack Welch's book was also one of his books, anyways. I don't remember which one it was that I listened to. Was also a lot like that too, about hey, some lessons from things. I think there's a lot of good lessons that somebody can take out of biographies.
Yeah, I think I listened to, I don't know if it was Winning by Jack Welch. I don't know if that was one of them, but
Yeah,
he has a
now
few of
you're
them.
gonna want me to. I'm gonna look at my
Yeah,
Audible
look it
for
up.
notes.
Look at
So
Audible. Yeah, if you want to
yeah.
rapid fire off a few in your Audible that you like, that's
Sure.
always
So,
good. But
Mindset by Carol Dweck,
Mhm.
Hard Thing About Hard Things. I mean, Jocko Willenick, anything him, is really good. Patrick Lencioni, anything him is good. Um, I mean, Clockwork, Mike Michalowicz was also a good one. Actually, that allowed me to take a 10-day sabbatical. I turned everything off, locked my phone, couldn't even access Facebook for 10 days when we went to Mexico with the family. So now I'm sure the real life MBA is the Jack Welch one that I read. Also really good. I mean, Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. I mean, Buy Back Your Time and Clockwork, very similar books in my opinion, but Dan Martell's just a beast there. Um, I have even got some ones that are Vince Flynn books. So those are like the
oh,
No, it's not. It's not a business book. So it's
Oh.
Jack Ryan Jr. Books. So it's from like the Jack Ryan series and Jack Ryan Jr. So there's just so many. I think the thing to point just one. I'm scrolling and I'm still scrolling. To point just one, I think is a disservice. I think the person just needs to consume. And I've also looked at books differently a little bit recently. I used to just consume and saying, okay, well, what's one or two things that I can really learn from this and then work on it versus just consuming and forgetting it all.
That is, I want to be the first one to thank you. This has been fantastic. Check out onpurposemedia.ca. More parts of the podcast. We'll see you ever next time. Thaddeus, thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Ciao.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.